I'd like to call the meeting to order. Hello. The June 11th meeting of the Road Advisory Committee. For those of you new here, don't know what we're doing, we were appointed by the Board of Trustees. We're all, except for our supervisor, Mr. McCready, we're volunteers. We don't get paid, not elected officials. And we have to remember to talk into this.
We figured it out. It is picking up your voice, but it's digital now going to the speaker. So there's a problem. That's when you hear it sometimes and you don't. They're still recording it, but it's the speaker in the room that's the issue.
Okay. So anyway, we're a volunteer group, and we've come together to try and figure out what we can do about getting local roads improved, and what we need to do that, if we can do it, how we can do it. And we're starting off with a fresh sheet of paper. Anything is possible. So that's who we are. We have a quorum, so we can do business. And first item is approval of minutes from May 28th. You have them right. You've seen them. You've got them right here. Any questions or comments, changes? Any
Jeff,
Sir.
just a quick, there's a typo on the people present,
Okay.
and my first name is Steve.
Okay.
It's just a simple typo.
Well, no, that's important. That's fine.
Thanks, Jeff.
You'll be corrected. Okay. Anything else?
Jeez.
All right, then we need a motion to approve the minutes. It's been moved,
I moved.
then seconded, or whatever. Moved and seconded.
Okay.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Today we have someone presenting, Lori Swanson from MDOT, Oakland. The TSC manager, what does TSC stand for?
Transportation Service Center.
Okay. The manager of that. Thank you for coming. And so without any further ado, why don't we just go into it? Go ahead. Welcome. Thanks for coming.
All right, thanks for having us. I'm Lori Swanson, manager at the Oakland Transportation Service Center. I've brought with me David Annison. He is in charge of, his title is Projects and Contracts Administration Engineer. So basically, he's the guy that handles our program for the TSC.
Okay.
So he is actually going to do the presentation, and I am here to support him.
Great.
Thank you.
He's very good at it.
Thank you. So this is just a very quick agenda. We're not going to be spending too much time on each one of these things. I'm sure you want to get to the end and where the questions and answers are, because you probably have plenty of specific questions for us. So I'm just going to go over all of these things, and then we'll open it up for questions. So this map here is basically what the Michigan Department of Transportation is responsible for. So if you see a road with an M, an I, or a US on it, those are the roads that we have full responsibility for. We're the ones that have to, assess the pavement and put together the projects and figure out how to make sure that those roads are safe. The rest of the roads are under the jurisdiction of either the county road commission or the cities. So this is a map of our the way MDOT is broken down. We're broken down into regions. The Superior region is all of the Upper Peninsula. The North region is everything, in the red area up on the top of the mitten. We're down in what's called Metro region, and Lori is the Oakland TSC manager. So that's that triangle there over in Pontiac. Now, years ago, MDOT was organized a little bit differently, and we had all of the planning and design, traffic and safety. That was all being run out of Lansing, and the only people out in the field that people could actually see from the Michigan Department of Transportation were the construction units. Sometimes they would have a trailer, or sometimes they would buy an decrepit old house and run their construction projects out of that. So it wasn't really very approachable. These guys are dirty, they're driving around in trucks, they got a tight schedule, so it's not very inviting. So the department came up with this TSC, or Transportation Service Center concept. Basically what that is that now we have the engineers, the design engineers, the construction engineers, traffic and safety, all of the planning out in the field. So we're over there in Pontiac, we drive the same roads as you guys, we see the same things as you, we train our children how to drive in these areas and stuff, so we're very connected with the communities now, and we have a good communication with them. One of the things that we do in the TSC is operations. So like what Lori explained, I'm in charge of basically the design and construction program. So I'm looking far out. I'm looking, 2 years out for a design, 4 years out for the next construction project. So I'm looking at the long term. We also have an operations section where they do permits, traffic and safety. They do traffic operations, so they coordinate all of our construction projects to make sure that we're not detouring people into another construction project. So this is basically what operations does. They're the day-to-day. So if somebody calls up and says, hey, there's a stop sign that I think it should be a no turn on red sign or something like that, or the traffic signal needs to be looked at because I don't think the timing is correct, that's the operations section that handles that.
Maintenance.
And maintenance is also in the operations section. So this is a slide that we usually display when we're talking to municipalities or the county or anybody else that wants to put in a Culver's someplace or a Chick-fil-A. This is when a permit is required. Yeah, that's another time. So this is basically when a permit is required. So just to be on the safe side, when you're going to do anything near on a road for the Michigan Department of Transportation, one of the ones with an I or US, you should really put in a permit, and then we can tell you whether a traffic study is required or if widening is needed. Maybe you're going to put in a subdivision and there's going to be a lot of trips in and out, and maybe we need a right turn lane or a left turn lane, or maybe a traffic signal would be warranted or something. So the permit process is where all of that starts. So it comes over to us as a permit, and then we start determining what actually needs to be looked into.
One thing I want to add is, and anytime, like, you would come out because, I don't know, if maybe you have a water main or you have something under one of our roads, then you would have to have a permit to actually come out and do any kind of work on it. Or like we have requests from different local agencies to put in like a way, like a gateway sign or something in our right-of-way, and that would have to come in for a permit. So anytime you want to touch our right-of-way, it has to be under a permit.
So this is kind of a summary of some of the maintenance activities that we do. And this is all run out of the operations section. Permits, maintenance, operations is in the operations section. So a lot of people think that we have actual state employees that are doing all of this maintenance, but actually a lot of it is contracted out. And sometimes we contract it out to the actual county. So the county does a lot of our snow removal in the wintertime, pothole patching. They do all of the maintenance for any kind of traffic signals that we have. We have some municipalities that are actually participating in that, and they do snow removal, and we set them up, and we actually, paying the municipalities to do snow removal for us. And we also have contractors that do a lot of the mowing and sweeping, litter pickup and stuff like that. A lot of the structures, bridges, large culverts, pump stations, they all need to be inspected and maintained also. So now we're getting into the Act 51. That's how the actual money is distributed in the state of Michigan. Act 51 is a state law, and it basically defines what a road is and who has responsibility for it. So the state law defines the road, but it also determines who has the responsibility and jurisdiction over improving that road or maintaining that road. One of the big things that the Act 51 does is it determines, where the money is going to flow to, and it's based on population and mileage. So there's these type of maps, and this is actually the map from the Road Commission, and Bloomfield Township is right there in the middle. Notice Bloomfield Hills is kind of grayed out because that's on a separate map, because Bloomfield Hills is a city, so they actually get money directly through Act 51, whereas a township is kind of, you know, in partnership with the Road Commission. So there's 83 counties in the state, 533 cities, and these maps are updated every year. So if you put in a subdivision, then that would go onto this map, and that mileage would go into the formula on how to determine how much money each city gets and where it all goes. This is just one flow chart of the Act 51 process. It's a very complicated process, and it all goes down to, and the bottom, there's 3 boxes on the bottom. One's the
hard to read.
state.
It's an eye chart, we can't read that.
Right,
No,
yeah.
we didn't
And this is-
expect you to read it.
No, and I have these in a PDF that I can forward to you, so you can look at it. Sure, yeah. But basically, what it does is that, you know, up at the top, that's our annual budget that we get from the federal government, and it's distributed to a whole bunch of other things from, you know, railroad crossings, they get a certain percentage or a certain amount, and it goes all the way down to, and whatever's left is on the bottom, and that's the city, the cities, the state, and also the counties.
David, has any of this stuff ever changed since 1951? Does this get updated as far as percentages or anything? Or is that fixed and we just change data at that point?
That I don't know.
I'm not sure either.
Okay. Just seems like a long time ago to come up with stuff that's going on 70 years later.
You see Bloomfield Township anywhere on that?
Yes,
You mentioned there were 533 cities, 83 counties. How many
Underlines the
townships
issue.
are there?
None.
There's only one township?
none.
No, the thing is, townships don't have jurisdiction over roads,
The county.
so that would mean that they don't have funding for roads through Act 51.
So they're like left out to, there's no one takes care of the townships road-wise.
Well, you don't have jurisdiction over them, but the county does, or maybe they're private roads, or we own the roads. You know, whoever has jurisdiction over the roads would have to maintain them. So, you know, since you don't own roads, someone else does, whether it's MDOT or it's the Road Commission, privately owned roads, you know, that sort of thing.
Where, the money you mentioned, there was federal money and state money. How does the state money get to you and how does the federal money get to you?
Well,
As the Oakland County, you get 2 buckets of money or you just get 1 bucket of money? Or how does that?
we get federal money, and then MDOT has to.
But what's that
match.
based upon?
That's based on whatever the transportation bill
Department
is
of
at the time.
Transportation?
At the time.
And it could be arbitrarily anything.
Yeah, every time they get, like, they have a IIJA or whatever, I don't know.
It's not based upon how many lost souls there are or anything, it's just a number.
Yeah, that budget that is in the federal budget, and then that gets allocated to the states, and then, you know, when we do a project like out on Telegraph, it's 80-20, so it's 80% federal money, 20% state money. And then if we happen to be in an Act 51 community, like the city of Pontiac, or the city of Bloomfield Hills, or Birmingham, or wherever, then they have to pay a certain percentage of our 20%.
I mean, the reason I'm asking is, it seems like if our legislators would be involved in that process, in that, in a bartering world, which is what all government is, do they barter well? Do they not barter well? How do we match up with, you know, at the beginning, we talked about how we're doing against all the other cities as far as collecting money and things, but how does the flow of money from Washington and from Lansing, how do we do in Oakland County versus other counties and other states, et cetera?
lately, Oakland County has done really well. Like in the governor's rebuilding Michigan funding, there was 3.6 billion. Oakland TSC got almost $1 billion of that. And that's how we have redone I-96 and put the flex lane in. We completely reconstructed it. We reconstructed the first half of 696. We're doing the second half right now. I-75 from basically Clarkston to the North County line, that money as well.
Isn't that a bond issue?
It is, but when you're saying funding, lately Oakland has been doing
Well,
very well.
Yeah, I just look at things as, I don't
So
look
you-
at bond issues as being
But the-
in that category.
Well,
wanna get
and that
back to
brings
the
up another
presentation.
point, and that is, we need sustained funding, and we don't have
I
that.
think that's what I'm getting.
Yes, and
Let
that's, I
let
think,
me,
what they're
let me
trying,
make a suggestion here. Can
I'm
we-
sorry, I'm
Yeah, I just
taking
want,
up-
let's get them to finish the presentation.
All right.
And then
Okay.
after that, then we'll ask all these questions.
Sure.
I have some too, but let's get the presentation done first.
okay.
Oh, I thought we were, okay.
Yeah,
What?
well, can I ask just one quick question? I'll be quick, I'll speak really quickly. Are these numbers real?
Yes.
Are they current numbers?
Yes.
So when it says 3 billion, this is the flow of the
Yep.
numbers currently?
Yes.
Of the dollars, rather?
Yeah, like he said, this is updated every year.
Okay, so you said 3.6, that says 3.0. Is there a reason there's a difference?
Well, we said, the bond funding,
Uh-huh.
that's separate from Act 51.
Okay, we
'Cause-
can talk later. I'll
Yeah, we
stop
leveraged
asking.
all of that.
Go ahead.
Okay,
Go ahead.
see, we listen anyway.
She read the chart.
Okay.
Okay.
I think one of the things that is kind of confusing, it's confusing to me, is the state of Michigan's definition of township, city, village. They all have different definitions. And for some reason, the townships fall under the county to get road funding. The county is responsible for all of the snow removal and all of that. So I don't know exactly how that works, but I've seen townships become cities just so they can start to get more into the decision process of what roads get funding and stuff. I'm not saying that Bloomfield should do that, but I've seen that happen. So one of the things that I was asked by Lori to kind of explain is how we determine in MDOT what project we're going to do next. So like I was saying before, is the TSC concept is that, you know, we're engineers, we're out here, we're driving these roads, we're very familiar with the condition of each one of the pavements. We keep an eye on things. Oh, the cracks are starting to form on this road over here. This road over here is having certain types of pop outs. You know, we kind of tabulate that, like what we're doing with with maintenance. You know, we have a maintenance supervisor that actually goes out and drives all these roads, and he determines where to do the maintenance type repairs, the smaller repairs like the pothole patching and stuff like that. But you know, if he notices something that's a distress that could be an indication of something going wrong underneath the pavement, then that's a serious thing. So we really focus in on those types of things. So one of the things that we do is we put together a prioritized list at the TSC, and then basically that list would bubble up to our region, and the region gets a certain amount of money, and it's very similar to the way the Act 51 money is distributed. Each region gets money, each TSC gets a certain amount of money, but we have to have projects that back up, you know, what we're going to be doing with our funding. We have region windshield tours with the TSC. The TSC and the region have windshield tours where we drive each one of the candidates and look at the pavement, and all of the engineers in the van kind of agree, yeah, this is the absolute worst road in Oakland County right now. So this is the next one on the list to get funding for either just a mill and overlay or a full reconstruction. So a full reconstruction includes all of the underground stuff. So we take out the base, the sub-base, and all of the sewer pipes and that kind of stuff. And we also have mill and overlays where it just kind of basically just, if it's a bunch of surface cracking, then we can just take off the first couple of inches and put down another layer of asphalt. And that could keep that road going alive for another 5 or 6 years. So the list of things on the lower right-hand side of this slide is what Lansing is doing. Lansing is putting together all of this data. So it's not purely objective. It's not just us driving around saying, oh, I don't like that road over there. So it's much more objective. So once our prioritized list goes up to the region and Metro Region puts their prioritized list together, then they bounce it off everything that Lansing's doing with all of their data to make sure that it jives with that. So there's a pavement distress score that's a 1 to 100, 100 being a brand new road, 1 being the road is completely failed. There's a ride quality. They actually drive around and drag this little trailer around and kind of, measure the vibrations in the road to see if that's something that would be of concern. And the biggest one is the RSL, or the remaining service life. That's basically the estimated time until the pavement reaches poor condition. So as we were talking about before, all of the bond funding is coming to an end. So our funding outlook for 26 and on looks like it's going to go back to the way it was before we got the bond funding. And like we were talking about, it would be better if we had a sustainable amount of funding from year to year that would encourage the economy of Michigan, because contractors right now, when we get this big, huge swath of money, contractors come in from outside the state to handle those types of contracts. And if we were to get a predictable amount of money that we can actually, do more predictive projects, then that would grow the construction industry base. So this is our contact information, and the next slide is going to be the questions and answers slide.
Okay, thank you very, very much. Very informative. But
We're gonna
let me
get a copy
ask
of
you
that.
this: how does that relate? What you're talking about? How does that relate to local subdivision, local roads at all? Does it relate at all?
In a township.
Well, in a township here, that's where we are.
In the
right.
township, so all your local roads would be county roads.
Right, so
So they're part of that distribution of funding too from the federal government. And, they get a piece of that pie, which then gets distributed. And I'm assuming they do the same type of
Okay.
process we do.
That's what I figured. Okay.
Yeah.
The problem is basically, Act 51 was passed in 1951. Bloomfield Township and the whole state of Michigan was totally different in 1951. Everything was different. It doesn't relate, and it's just obsolete.
Yeah,
It's
no,
totally obsolete.
I've never understood why townships can't own roads. I mean,
Well, Act 51 said so,
but I mean, why? That makes no sense to me. It's
because
that's
Lansing said so.
That's something that needs to be updated, I would think.
Absolutely. It's just completely irrelevant. Bloomfield Township had, I don't know how many, 2,000 residents in 1951? I don't know. I mean, some ridiculously little amount was out in the country. And it's completely different. The amount of traffic on the roads, all the other things have completely changed. And so Act 51 is totally out of date. And that's what governs it.
Have you looked at the legislative history for Act 51?
I have not. Yeah, I would have to go back and research it.
I'll do that. I can do that.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, go ahead.
Lori and I served on the Oakland Business Roundtable many years ago, and thanks for coming out here.
Yeah,
And
no problem.
you've been handling TSC for many, many years now, right?
I've been there a long time.
At least 10 plus years, if I recall. I like that I-75 caricature, whoever came up with that, looks like somebody's lying down on the I-70.
That's
Some
from,
sort of
that's from
copyright
Schoolyard Rock.
Yeah.
I'm just a Bill. That one I know.
So the question I have is, the Telegraph Road, US 24, or
Yep.
that's MDOT's, right?
Yes.
So when they do either resurfacing or improvement to those roads within the boundaries around the township, the safety path that goes along Telegraph, is that something like I see, for example, I-275 has a path that was part of the project. I was involved in some of those segments of I-275 construction. Because township is spending money from the safety path to do Telegraph Road, and I wonder whether we should keep our money and have MDOT, when they improve the road, do the safety path on those major thoroughfares, rather than us
Well,
doing it.
That's not always a guarantee. We try and look at a local agency's master plan, and depending on the type of project, if it's a total reconstruct or it's a heavy rehab, we will look at putting in sidewalk, like where we see a goat path or something. We always update the pedestrian crossings, that sort of thing, for ADA compliance. However, if we are just going, like David just managed a project on Square Lake Road where we came in at night and we just took off, or you just added a layer.
It was a microsurface.
Yeah, a microsurface, which is a maintenance type work. We can only spend money on these maintenance jobs on the pavement. We can't go outside the curb line for it to fit in that type of funding. So sometimes we have funding restrictions on what we can and can't do with a certain type of project. So like that project on Square Lake, we wouldn't have been able to put in a path. And so, but if he was reconstructing it, then we would look at putting in a path, but we would probably have the township participate. And then we always sign agreements with every local agency that you have to maintain them. So it just depends. But we always look at master plans to see what can be incorporated in a project when funding allows.
Thank you. I think you've done an excellent job on Square Lake Road, but there are fences on two sides. I think that was part of the project, right? Those white fences on Square Lake Road.
That was not, we didn't do anything
was
with the
They've
fence.
always had white fences.
Yeah,
Somebody
Yeah.
keeps running into them, that's the problem.
yeah, I think that was
And
an
the
enhancement
snowplows throw it
project.
too.
Yeah, I
But
think-
that's
Yeah.
a discussion for another day. But yeah, it's all there. Every year there's like a deer went running through one eye.
Right.
I believe we are going to invite a legislator to present us as well, but doesn't Act 51 has been amended several times?
Yes,
Okay, because it's not the same act,
right, correct.
80 years later, it's been amended. And between northern communities and southern communities, and I think the legislator have a hard time coming together on making the funding right for us, I think. That's what, I do understand that part. So I think we have to talk to our local legislator if we are going to do something about Act 51 funding.
Correct, yeah, that's above
Well,
my
it may-
pay grade.
It may have been amended, but the premise that the townships are all rural, and in the act, they're rural, they're not heavily populated, not heavily traveled, and that the counties would take those roads over. That's changed, and that's not been.
I don't disagree with you, but I think it depends on the number of miles of road and
Yeah.
length. So back in 51, maybe Bloomfield Township had just one road, but now they have several.
Right.
So road commission gets more funding for us than we did in
All right.
1951. That's what my understanding is.
But it
Right.
seems like your frustration is the jurisdiction. You want to have a more
That's part of it.
involved say
Right.
in what roads get fixed, and
Well, also the flow of funds.
Funding.
The flow of funds goes through a lot of these buffers, like a lot of these filters, until it gets down to the bottom where we are.
Right.
And I'm not sure I understand it totally, but it looks to me like in the cities and villages or whatever,
More direct.
the money from the state comes faster down and more completely to those jurisdictions. Whereas here it goes like one of those pachinko games where it just keeps
Well,
floating.
for
you know.
here, all your money gets funneled into the RCOC
Right.
bucket. So,
Right.
Along with everybody
Yeah, and
else.
if you look at that complicated flow chart, the box right next to the counties is MDOT. So we're getting that money the same way.
right.
So I think talking to the elected officials is the right place.
Well, that's part of the
Because
plan.
we're just following these rules.
Right, of
on-
course.
On how we can get funding and what we can do with the money that's allocated to
Well,
us.
my frustration is not with what you're saying. It's absolutely not. It's the way it's structured. That's what it is.
Right.
And you're right. Okay.
So one thing, Lori, you mentioned about economic development. Are there any MDOT grants that township can tap into?
Yeah, I mean, there are, there's like TAP grants and that sort of thing, like the city can do for different things, like to enhance streetscaping or,
You guys are in the middle of a TAP application to
Yeah.
continue the sidewalks along
yeah,
the
or to
telegraph.
put in paths, or, I mean, there's many things that can be included under that. And we always will work with the township to provide our support. I always write letters of support for different communities, like where they want to put in a path, or they, like right now, the city of Southfield wants to add a bike or a safety path on the side of the 9 Mile Bridge over M10, you know, that sort of thing. We'll work with you. David's working with the city of Rochester Hills to put a bike path over the Rochester Road M59 bridge. You know, there's things like that. We're always here to partner with you on that sort of thing and provide guidance and that sort of thing. We expect mainly the township to come with their engineers and do the heavy lifting of, you know, actual plans or, you know, estimates, that sort of thing, to prepare the grant, but we're happy to partner.
Is it the in-kind service, or is it actual money that township can get towards those kinds of things?
It's actual money, usually whatever your estimate is, like the township would put up a certain percentage, they like 20% or higher, and then the rest of the funding would be grant, you know, through the grant.
That's actual dollars.
Actual dollars, yeah.
Thank you.
And then it's even better if we have a project coming through that we can partner, because then you get better prices and when you come with a MDOT project, like the city of Rochester Hills is for their bridge project, so, yeah.
You highlighted a funding cliff for Michigan funding that's going to develop at the end of this year. What impact, if any, will that have on the township? I know you're not Oakland County Road, but what do you
Right.
anticipate? And second, looking into your crystal ball, what do you think about for federal, what does it look like for federal funding the next 2 or 3 years and state funding for roads for the next 2 or 3 years?
You want to bring that slide back up?
Sure.
Because that is it. So the cliff is, the cities and the villages and the road commission are not going to see this cliff. Because
Okay.
this cliff was due to the Rebuilding Michigan funding.
Okay.
And that's how we've been operating, and that's why we say we need more sustainable funding. We need something that's even keel. Right now, we respond to these shot in the arms of money where, you know, it's very hard on our staff, the industry, whether it's consulting, it's the actual construction industry, because there's not enough people in the state of Michigan to do this work. So a lot of times, the bid prices come in high because there's not the people to do the work. And so that's a problem. If we had sustainable funding that was just even, and was more than what we have right now, then we could plan for it better. The industry could plan for it better and, maintain the works, force that they need to do that to that funding level. But right now, we get these huge influxes of money, and we are grateful. Don't get me wrong, we were grateful for all the money that we got out of the Rebuilding Michigan funding, because 696 was falling apart. We absolutely needed it. But it's really hard to plan for that, to, be able to put out 3 $275 million projects, boom, boom, boom. That's really hard on everybody. And you can see the stress, and the stress is through the bid prices.
What do you anticipate for funding, federal and state, short term, 2-3 years?
This is what we anticipate right here on this chart, and it's going back to normal annual funding that we have. We like to try and work towards keeping our roads at 90% all good, good or fair condition. And with this funding that you see in 27, 28, 29, we can't achieve that. And so and I know the legislator, that these are conversations that are going on right now in the legislature of more sustainable funding. So hopefully, they'll be able to get something done where we can achieve something better than what you see here.
I'd like to ask a hypothetical. I don't know if you can answer this, but right now we have, on gasoline sales, we have sales tax, which most states don't, to my understanding, and we have no tolls in Michigan. If sales tax was removed from gasoline and we had tolls, which would be directly funding for the roads, tolls go directly into roads. Do you see that as an advantage? Do you think that would be? What do you think? I know.
Are you asking our personal opinion, because we can't really speak for the department on something like that?
Right.
Well, I guess personal opinion then. All right, why not?
Well, right now we have gas tax, and part of the tax on gas is sales tax, 6% that we don't get.
Right.
A start would just be including that 6% in what MDOT gets, but we don't get that. So of I don't even know what the gas tax is anymore, 32 cents or whatever it is.
But it gets divided up into schools and all kinds of other things, so too.
That would be one step in the right direction, but.
And some of the states, sorry.
I was just going to say, part of our problem right now is how do electric vehicles, they don't pay gas tax. So we've lost funding due to electric vehicles. Oh, yeah. And so they're looking at ways, because gas tax isn't sustainable anymore.
Mileage.
Because of, electric vehicles. And actually, electric vehicles are a lot heavier than a standard vehicle, and they do more damage to the roads.
Really?
So,
Yeah, that's true.
yeah, so, now that we're transitioning to more hybrid type of vehicle, different types of what powers them, we've got to have a different conversation. So how do you tax
I
them?
asked that.
The average economy of the car uses less gas.
Well, there's that
So
too.
there's less opportunity
Yeah.
that you would have.
Governor Blanchard was talking about that.
I asked you that question, the hypothetical, because, and you spoke to it. Gas, 6% of every dollar from the gas station goes to the state fund. Doesn't get to you. You just said that.
Right.
But if you remove that, but add tolls, the cost to the driver would be pretty much could be pretty much the same. No, it's not like a tax increase. But yet the toll money would go directly into repairing the roads. Now, we need to have more information on that, but that just seems to me, and that's why I asked you what you thought.
Yeah, and that's a legislator thing
That's
too,
right, of
because,
course.
no legislation has ever been passed to allow it, so.
Could you
So-
talk a little
some of
bit
our-
about your relationship with the road commission?
Oh, yeah.
What is it, how does it work, how does the funding flow, et cetera?
Okay, so we have a very good partnership with the Road Commission. I actually have monthly meetings with Gary Petrovich, who's their deputy director.
He came here
He
and
was here the
presented.
other, yeah.
Okay, yeah, he's a great guy, and we sit down and we talk about, different things that we are collaborating on, because they are a very big, maintenance, contractor for us. They do all of our snow plowing, like David said, snow plowing, signal work, they put signs up, they'll go out and they do all of our pothole patching, they do other maintenance projects for us too, like they can repair curb and gutter when we have a failure. So we're always collaborating, we're always working together, and, but as far as funding, we're pretty much, other than them being a contract agency for us, their road work and our road work is separated. We don't really do any collaboration on that because, they spend their money on their roads, we spend our money on our roads.
So another follow-up question, how long is the duration of your relationship with the Road Commission? How many years in duration has it been? Do you have another source, Road Commission aside, if you wanted to value how they're doing versus another entity?
I guess
the
I'm
work
not
at
sure
hand?
what you mean.
Well, do
'cause-
you have a single source relationship with the Road Commission? And that, do you only use them for the things you just articulated?
No, we also use, like, the city of Ferndale is a contract agency for us. Where are other contract agencies? I can't remember.
Check the slide.
Yeah, we have other ones. Oh, Farmington, Southfield, I think there's other ones.
Rochester.
Yeah, Rochester. So they do some work for us, and we pay them to do that work because we don't have a lot of in-house maintenance staff.
So how do you evaluate any agency, sub-agency, when they perform work for you guys? Do you have metrics that you evaluate the source on?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Okay,
we,
can you articulate what some of those are?
yeah, so, we have, as far as like plowing, we have, I don't know exactly all the metrics, but like, we want them, like certain roads get plowed and when we have a snow event. Freeways are first, like Telegraph is, right up there with when things get plowed. So those get plowed first. We work with them. If we get complaints, that Telegraph hasn't been plowed, then, that's something we have a conversation with them after the event's over and be like, like, hey, we need to change this process, the higher priority roads, get out there first. I mean, there are things we do. We work, we have these conversations. Any issue my maintenance coordinators have with RCOC, Gary and I have conversations to work things out, and usually we have no problems.
But Lori's not the, sorry.
Go ahead.
But Lori's not the only one that talks to the county. We're talking to the county at all levels. Like, for instance, I have a design project that's gonna be, looking at an intersection over on Dixie Highway, over on White Lake. And, we involved the county because the county roads that come into this intersection are their responsibility. So the community there had expressed that they wanted to put in a right turn lane. So we started to have conversations with the county on
The
that.
Road Commission?
The Road Commission on that. Yeah, that's right, I apologize. The Road Commission and county are two different things.
Not to our group, we're trying to figure that out.
So there's another situation that we're gonna put roundabouts up on Grange Hall and I-75.
At the
And that's-
ramps.
Yeah, and those are going to be, be right there on a county road. So we're dealing with the county, what their future plans are for Grange Hall Road and, how to design the roundabouts, what to do in the meantime while we have that I-75 construction project right there until we get the roundabouts in a couple of years.
Okay, thank
And
you.
we always work with the local agencies, like when David was doing the Square Lake project this year, and then when we were doing the big reconstruct the last year, we worked with Corey all the
Yeah.
time, and they're involved in design reviews and that sort of thing. We always make sure that they're invited.
Who's Corey?
Corey Amos,
Your engineer.
your engineer.
Director of Engineering.
Okay, I didn't know. I just-
Sorry, I
It's
just
okay.
assumed you knew.
Don't assume that. Thank you. Thanks, appreciate that.
Anybody else?
This is the only state where we have road commission system, is that correct?
I don't know that.
I believe that's the, we are organized it, very, very uniquely than any other state in the country. So it's another layer of,
Monkey
I won't say
business.
bureaucracy, but
Yeah.
Another layer of monkey
Why
business.
not add another layer?
Why not? Anybody else? All right, so then, thank you so much. This was very
You're welcome.
informative. Very informative. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
And if you have any questions, follow-up questions or whatever, David had put the contact info up there.
And you said you
Susan
could
has it
forward this
too.
PDF to us?
Sure.
This
Sure, Susan?
Yep.
PowerPoint, that'd be good.
Okay.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
So we
you're
have it
always welcome
on
to
file.
call.
Thank you again.
So you
very
had
much.
mentioned, I have one question. You had mentioned, or David had mentioned that you have a group that goes out to assess potholes, which one needs to be worked on. Does that mean we need to call the TSC as a resident if we find potholes that we want to have addressed, or?
If they're on a state route, yes, call our office
Okay.
and we'll have them handled. Yeah, we were just out on Telegraph, last week, doing a windshield tour because we've noticed up by, just north of here, we're getting an abnormally higher number of pop-outs. And, what are we gonna do? That's what we do. We come out and we assess. But yeah, if you see anything on our trunk lines, call our TSC and we'll handle it.
All right, thank you.
is there that's a follow-up question to, because right north of Square Lake Road on Telegraph, it looks like after it was paved a few years ago, there are a bunch of failure and they've been filled up with the asphalt, but is that a contractor or somebody takes responsibility for those kinds of failures? Because when you drive, you can actually see the, even next to Long Lake and Telegraph, there, as you turn right, there are settlement, and they've been patched up with the asphalt. But I was just wondering if it's a major state road, how can we accept that kind of failure?
We do have warranties on these jobs, like a 3 and 5 year warranty. It just depends. I would have to look into these exact ones you're talking about. But like the piece north of Square Lake, we have the northbound side, which is a different vintage than southbound. And so were you talking on the northbound side or the
Southbound.
southbound? Yeah, because I'd have to look into it.
We'll take a look at that.
Yeah.
All the way from Casco, Target, you come all the way to Long Lake. You would, especially in the right 2 lanes, you'll see asphalt patched up, but when you drive, you can feel the
Yeah,
pothole.
that's the section I was talking about, we were looking at was from Square Lake to Long Lake. We have water that water table must be high or something because we have coming up through the pavement, water, and it's creating potholes, and we've been out putting what's called mastic in there, and it's kind of like a rubbery,
Like a crack seal.
crack sealy compound in there, and it really tightens it up, but we can see wherever you're seeing like a little bit of brown by those, that's
Yeah,
what's
that-
happening.
That's one of the roads that we're keeping a close eye
Yeah.
on, because unfortunately,
It's
the
on our
condition,
radar.
the condition right now is not that bad. It's not as bad as some of the other roads that we have in the county. So
Yeah.
we're keeping an eye on that, because if it starts to go, it might go fast, so we're keeping
Yeah.
a close eye.
So we have that to look forward to.
We always have that to look forward to.
Yeah.
All right, thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
You're welcome.
Before we get to items on the agenda, we have some folks here. I don't know if you wanted to make comments. Now, we'll open up to public comment or any questions. It's your choice. I mean, I want to make sure you get what you need here. Okay, very good, thanks. All right, so then the next item would be items not on the agenda. Anybody have anything for future that they want to point out? I have one thing. I think we talked about this before. Now, this is down the road a bit, but we talked about committees, subcommittees. And the way I see it, that we could divide that into three sections: legislative, financial, and political. to get information. You just brought it up, you said you were gonna look at, you said that you would look at legislation.
I will.
So that would be one looking at legislation, how it relates, what's outdated, what's good, what we might want to change. Financial, we're starting to look at that, where the money is, and start to digest that. The committee could digest that and see, and then political, what do we do as a township? How do we handle this? I think as we look into it, another committee that could start digesting some of this and see a trend or see something. So just to keep it in the back of your mind, I think that's where we might go. And so think about maybe what one of those, maybe there's another committee, I don't know. I'm just throwing this out there, that you might want to be on. You might be able to serve and help out in this.
And subcommittee makes it easier if, let's say, for example, Canton Township is not available to come over here or some such, City of Farmington Hills, whatever. 3 of us can go and,
That's right.
and spend an hour with them and bring back the information.
Exactly correct, right. And from what I understand, I hope this is correct, that since it's a committee that's less than a quorum, it doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be noticed, and we're not subject to Open Meetings Act. So you can just, 3 people can just get together and do it. No decisions can be made, but you're just bringing back information. So that's correct.
Yeah,
But then also digesting what we're hearing, this could be months ahead of time. This could be, next fall, next winter, where we get all this information that we're getting and start to digest it and see what we have to recommend to the Board of Trustees. Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's a good idea, but I think we need to get together and say what it is that we're trying to accomplish. So you can, like, we mentioned these sub-agencies that are direct payers. Is that a subject that you want to address? Because if we come out with some recommendations, we can't just make them words. They have to be, how does that fit into their life?
Correct.
And so I think it's great to like be thinking of that along those lines, but it could be just a couple of people saying, okay, we can divide this, or especially if you're gonna go to witness a meeting or have a meeting with someone, I think it's good to have 2 people there. And go and talk to them and say, well, how has this worked out for you, blah, blah, blah. But before you go, have a list of questions that the committee itself wants to, so you're there representing the committee. And then we don't have to go back and forth and say, did they say this or did they say that?
The way that would work would be let's say there's 3 people on a committee, okay. They would get together and say, well, what questions are we gonna ask? How are we gonna do it? They would formulate that. Then they would go and do the interview, then come back and report to this group, and then we would all digest it. That's how it would work.
And I would want the committee to get their action from the big committee and say, these are the questions that we
Right,
want
okay.
answered. So we're talking about the same thing, but I know this is a bugaboo of mine. Bonds are not grants.
That's right.
So for people to say that the state gave $5 billion in automotive road grants is just not right, because we're actually the people who bought the bonds. Now, whether you bought one or not, are paying the bill for that, and then they have it. So I mean, we could just come out and say, well, we want you to float another $5 million bond grant just for Bloomfield, and I guarantee it would get bought up.
Yeah, well, you and I we'd pay the interest.
We wouldn't pay the people who bought the bonds
No.
would pay the interest.
No, they get the interest.
They get
People
the
who bought
Well,
the bonds get the interest.
Yeah, but
Because we're the payers.
We
we're
pay
the
it.
pay. No, you're the guarantor.
No, we're the payer. When we bond something, right? Am I correct?
Yeah, they bond, but what Gary's getting at is that there's a formula that the money falls through, and then there's what they refer to as the road improvement. The governor issued a bond. She has the ability to do that.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it really
I'm
shouldn't
sorry.
be counted towards any of our road dollars, I think is what you're indicating.
Yeah.
Right.
Because like 696, Lori said it was $1 billion, right? And I'll take you back to, I think it's M6 over in Grand Rapids that cuts around Grand Rapids, goes to Holland. road was built well over 20, 25 years ago. I believe we're still paying on that bond. And they talk about there's just not enough money in the system, but is the money just not getting down to where it needs to go?
So
But
we
the
have to,
bond, but when a bond is issued by the state, by Bloomfield Township, whatever, we issue a bond. We're just borrowing money. And
Right.
we're paying the interest. You and I are paying it. And whoever buys the bond, they collect it. It's an investment.
right.
But
But
we're
at least you
paying
get
that
something
interest.
for the investment.
Well, they have to.
It makes
of
me
course.
wonder why,
I
say,
mean,
that
I
our
go
road
to the
commission doesn't
when I go to
bond
the
for
gas
our
station,
roads.
I don't get anything
Well,
for
that's
that
an
investment.
For what?
I go to the gas station, I don't get the 25 cents investment. I'm just paying it out.
Right.
It could go to Ishpeming. Who the hell knows?
That's why I keep bringing up, I brought it up about the sales
So
tax.
you're very
and that.
consistent about that. That's
Well,
very good.
because it's a fact.
Well, it is a fact.
You're paying it, and goes right to
But
the.
that's why
it
the
goes to the general
legislator,
fund.
I think, and the 51 was done in 51, I think says it all.
That was also my
I
point,
think
exactly.
bond, just one footnote, anytime bond, you have to get a voter's approval. Like
Yes.
School, Bloomfield
Yeah.
Schools had $85 million bond, we 60% voted for it, or more than 51%
course.
voted. That's only when you can issue bonds, you can't just
Yeah.
issue bonds on.
All right.
People like that. Especially nowadays, you don't know what to invest in. You said, well, I can get 5.5% from Bloomfield Hills, and I'll have a nice road.
Okay, anybody have anything else, not on the agenda that you want to bring up? Okay, then I guess then,
If you have any thoughts on a subcommittee, maybe you can circulate and then we can think
Feedback.
about it.
well, I think it's a little
Premature?
premature to start that. We're still in the
Yeah.
very early fact-finding stage, and I think we ought to wait and get, like, when we have some legislators.
Yeah, Donnie Steele's coming in,
Yeah,
who's
other
our
people
state
come in. Let's-
representative, and she chairs the Transportation and
Right.
Appropriations, where
she
the
is
dollars,
coming? Oh,
yep,
good.
in August.
I just brought it up so that you could think about what you might be good at, what you might, which part of that, or you might have another component that I'm
And
not.
then I
didn't
think we
of.
have Canton Township coming in to
I
talk
wanna
to us
hear
because
from them,
they
yeah.
passed the
Oh,
bond.
terrific, oh,
Right,
terrific.
but,
Yeah.
you talk about bonds, instead of giving the bond to the neighborhood to deal with, like it's happening, the bonding, in my thought, should be going through our road commission, and they sell the bond, and they pay the bond.
Exactly. And then
Well,
we'd all feel better about ourselves.
Perhaps.
I know the whole structure of the townships,
It's just a goofy thing. I don't understand it. And we should have become a
Well,
city.
Steve said he's gonna do some research on this,
I'll
right?
look at that legislative history and the way of resources, you look at the act, but then below it, it publishes the legislative history. And then if there are amendments to it, there's history for that as well. So I'll look at that and I'll get back to you.
That could be an agenda item, a little bit down the road, if you want to. It could be an agenda item where you could report what you find back to this committee, independent of everything else.
Let me figure it out.
Yeah, sure.
I'll be in contact.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
Did
Move to
you,
adjourn?
I'm sorry, did you
I
want to
thought
say?
that gentleman wanted to.
Oh,
say-
did you?
Yes.
Well, if you do, you need to come to the microphone.
Yeah, just introduce yourself.
Introduce yourself.
Introduce yourself.
That's why I asked.
All right, we finally got some business.
All right, so my name is Michael Weinstein. This is my second meeting of being here, and a couple things came to mind. So I guess first of all, I have to know, what is the goal here? So like, and under whose authority? So I would assume that Bloomfield Township put this group of great gentlemen and ladies together to tackle this issue. I'd love to know what that issue is, but more than anything, I think, and Jeff, you have, this is the second meeting that I think you've sort of alluded to the fact that our money just seems to be going somewhere, and then it gets trickled down, and everyone sort of takes their pieces and we don't get it. So we're spending a lot of money on roads. My streets are terrible. Everybody's streets are terrible. West Bloomfield's got the same problem. They're a township as well. The question is, what's our end game? Are we trying to find a solution, and is that solution to change the minds in Lansing to say that we can own our roads? Or is it are we gonna say, we don't wanna be a township anymore, we wanna be a city? We wanna own the
mission
roads?
statement. We have a mission statement
Okay.
that lays that out.
Perfect,
And we can get that to you, right?
Yeah.
perfect,
We
that's
can
what
get
I'm
that to you.
looking.
And it's very broad, because we want to leave it broad, but it
Yes.
tells, that's what we want to do.
Okay.
And not specifics, but in general.
Okay.
So, but that's what I think you need to see.
And I think that's important, I think that going towards that goal and then reporting back and saying, hey, let's go do it. Let's talk to our state legislature. Let's tell the people in Bloomfield Township, this is why we have the problem.
Exactly, right.
And these are our solutions, and I'd love to see that.
But before you can do
The
that.
mission statement's on
There it
the
is.
township
Okay, yeah, that's
website,
it.
Perfect.
and it's right there. You,
All right.
Put on your take
Thank
a
you.
picture of it, you got it.
Before you read the last sentence of it.
Before you can try and solve a problem, you have to find out what the problem is. You have to define it, you have to analyze it.
I think you figured out the problem.
What?
I think you have figured out the.
No,
We're in a process of discovery.
That's
Come on.
exactly right.
I know, but I think you've
Exactly
hit
right.
in my opinion, you've hit the nail on the head.
Well,
A couple
we're trying.
with a couple statements, so
Well,
I
it's
think
better
that's.
to be the hammer than the nail, is that
Yes,
right?
exactly.
We will, and the process we will discover what the
Yeah.
issues are, and then we'll report that out. But it's
Okay.
gonna take time.
Okay.
We're not in a
Yeah, as
hurry.
distasteful as the conclusion will be, the discovery period, we have to do a good job of opening up every door that's there, because it is a mess. And we've been, like, you can't put sidewalks in Bloomfield Township, but then we don't take care of the roads. So the kids can't ride their bikes, that's not right.
Yeah.
And we have to do something about it. People maybe, at least they'll know that we looked at every nook and cranny, and this is what we came up with. It may be a combination of all the above.
That's right.
Which is what I believe it will be. The legislature has to do something. The way the money gets distributed from the state has to be maybe revised. And how we spend the money here, I mean, I was interested to hear that we can't keep construction crews in Michigan because it's a sine wave, which makes total sense to me. But then you're paying a premium on every foot of road that you're kind of trying to replace. That's why the township, who is not gonna go anywhere, might be the best solution to just say, you guys handle it. And then we'll say, well, we have the infrastructure and the backbone to do it, and that could be it. But your frustration is, believe me, that's the only reason I'm here.
May I ask you a question? Where do you live?
I'm in Bloomfield Square, over at Corton and Inkster.
Okay.
And I just spoke with Noah today, so met Noah last meeting,
Yeah.
I spoke with him, and he came out and he's doing stuff. But the reality is that it's like, we're gonna all have to come up with a lot of money to have all of our roads fixed.
Was
And
your subdivision one that was Cape sealed? Right in that area, I know it. Inkster and Maple in that area? Is that
no, we're Corton and Inkster, so
Courtney
we're,
said, my mistake,
so
sorry.
we're just north
Yeah.
of Inkster.
Gotcha.
Or not north, west of Inkster.
All right.
Chairman, I have just a quick one.
Sure.
I just want to.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks
Thank you,
for
Michael.
sharing that.
Whoever prepared this, the supervisor letter, kudos to Mike and Sue for making it transparent
Yeah.
with all the committee assignment and. I
Well,
mean,
we want to
dates,
make it as
regular
transparent
meetings.
as possible. Everybody's welcome to say
That's-
whatever they want,
I thought that was wonderful.
yeah.
So, since you brought up that newsletter, we usually send that out quarterly. What would you think, and I don't need an answer, if we just had it available online, where you go online and download it, or we email it to you to download versus mailing it out?
That's the way of the future.
You have to mail it. You have to mail it.
You can print it, come on.
No, it makes a difference when you get it, because my wife and I were just talking about that. She goes, this thing comes out, oh, well, we missed it, because it's banked into all your other email.
If you had a sign up, if we did a sign up newsletter on our website, where we would automatically email it to you every quarter, and then you could download and read it, would that work for you?
that would be good.
The other thing is, Glenn Hagan.
Maybe is this an offline discussion? That's not,
Yeah, just,
I-
it's an
no-
offline,
no
but just think
disrespect.
about that.
but
Right.
Save some trees.
Well, we spend about $40,000, and it's mostly postage. The printing is inexpensive, but it's the postage.
Right.
That's huge.
That's the way of the future.
We'll put air holes in it.
The future is here. Okay,
You called the question? Adjourned?
okay, yeah. All those in favor to adjourn, yes.
Yes.
Aye.
Thank you, this was
Thank
very,
you.
very informative.